innate. In the latter part of last year, there was considerable criticism of national identification and tracing, much of it coming from Federated Farmers. On becoming Minister and fully aware of the second business case study that is underway, I asked Dr. Nicholson to at least allow this to be completed so that we could have a reasoned debate in light of all the information. I want to thank Don for his cooperation, and when the business case is completed, which I understand will now be in August, I'm happy to accept all arguments for and against proceeding with the date before any final decision is made. But I want to be upfront with you. Having visited Australia last year and having seen the way it has embraced national identification and tracing, if Australia can use its scheme to gain market access against New Zealand product, I don't think it would hesitate to do so. Staying with biosecurity, I want to discuss one of the leading pests of concern to many farmers, TB. Keeping on top of TB in New Zealand has been an expensive activity. The current budget for managing TB is around $82 million per year. Many of you will be aware that the law requires the future direction of the TB strategy to be reviewed. Leading up to the review, a lot of work involving various organisations has been going on to assess possible options for the strategy. As part of this process, the Animal Health Board has recently asked cattle and deer farmers to provide their views on an option that combines keeping a focus on reducing the rate of infected herds while also reducing the size of the vector risk areas where infected wild animal populations risk spreading TB to herds. The Animal Health Board will be putting out a proposal for public comment, and I look forward to hearing the views of farmers and others on the future direction of the strategy. Now moving on to two other areas I want to talk about: water infrastructure and the high country. I consider that water storage and allocation is one of the biggest issues facing the agricultural sectors and New Zealand more widely. I congratulate Federated Farmers for your very similar views and for airing them frequently. As I said earlier, New Zealand is blessed with an abundance of rainfall and clean water. The problem is that it doesn't always end up where we want it and when we want it. The government has signalled that we intend to address the country's infrastructure deficit. The National Infrastructure Advisory Board has been announced, and amongst its 6 members is Dr. Terry Hyler, Chief Executive Officer of Irrigation New Zealand. Terry is there for a reason. He is there to help me pound on relentlessly that the quickest productivity gains to be achieved in this country will be through expanding the areas that can be irrigated. New Zealand currently irrigates 600,000 hectares, but a further 1.9 million hectares could be irrigated. This must be done, particularly as New Zealand agriculture faces more difficult summer seasons as a result of climate change. Recent public comments from the Prime Minister and myself should leave you in no doubt of this government's absolute commitment to support increased development in water infrastructure. I want to now touch on the specific South Island issue of tenure review. The treatment of this relatively small group of farmers under the previous government was disgraceful. In essence, it's a matter of who you believe can do the best job. Farming families who live and breathe the high country, or a government department run by Wellington bureaucrats. National backs the farmers any day. We are currently reviewing Labor's high country objectives and expect the paper to go through Cabinet shortly. This will set the parameters under which National will operate. It will restore confidence in the tenure review process and fulfil the intent of the 1998 Crown Pastoral Lands Act. We still have to tackle the issue of high country rentals. The high country farmers took the government to court, and good on them for doing so. The minaret decision is imminent, but regardless of who wins, it presents government with huge challenges. I will tackle these challenges whichever way the decision goes. Finally, I want to mention the meat sector study launched last week. As I said then, and I say it again, change in the meat sector will only be lasting if it is driven from within the sector. But I've also made it clear that the status quo of the meat sector cannot remain, and it needs to change for the good of all farmers and indeed for all New Zealanders. Following the launch of the study, I met with senior meat sector representatives to generate debate within the industry about where it heads from here. Federated Farmers were, of course, included in that group. Discussion was robust and productive. It is hopefully only the beginning of a process by which the meat industry, processors, farmers and other stakeholders take steps to work together for their mutual benefit. It makes sense for one company to do what it can to stay ahead of its competitors, but where there are opportunities for collaboration that allow all parties to benefit without losing their independence, then these should be explored. Farmers also have a role to play in collectively driving the future strategic direction of the meat industry. Farmers own the bulk of the assets in the sector, not just through farm ownership, but also through their shareholdings in both the cooperative and non-cooperative processing companies alike. I challenge you all to think about where you want this industry to be in 10 to 15 years' time. I'm not going to dictate how the industry should proceed, and neither does the meat sector lay out a plan of action for the industry. Solutions must be driven by the industry for the industry. I want to conclude now by saying that despite New Zealand being caught in the worst global recession since the 1930s, I remain realistic and optimistic about the future of farming. By moving away from the traditional focus on production and looking instead to innovation to raise productivity and meet changing consumer demand, New Zealand farmers will be better placed to deal with the challenges of the next 10 years. But it will not be easy. It will require you as farmers to adopt new practices, abandon old ways of thinking, and embrace different farming methods. This will be a challenge, but when I look at the history of New Zealand agriculture and New Zealand farmers, I'm confident that each and every one of us can meet that challenge. For our part, the government is committed to ensuring that New Zealand farmers stay